All right. Trying a little bit of a different setup for now because I'm tired of being in the room. So, is it Monday? Yeah, it's Monday. So we got Raw coming on tonight, WWE. All right, cool. I was up really late last night playing Black Myth Wukong. So my body clock is all off. Oh, there's an ad. Really? You're like, as soon as I start, there's an ad. Go away. Give me my. Oh my God, YouTube is stupid. I had a cool background on back there. All right, there. We're finally back. All right, so I wanted to do a video today, and it took me a second to figure out what I really wanted to talk about. But it came down to like I got to thinking, like, when I got paid on Friday, all of my bills came out all at once. Like, this has never happened before, but they all came out all at once. Like my rent, my car payment, phone bill, car insurance, like everything came out all at once, and it took my entire check. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Seriously? Like, I know that happens to a lot of people. This is like the first time in a long time that it's happened to me, because pretty much ever since 2022 is when I finally actually got a good job. That I had just crap paying jobs all the way up until 2022. Like, that's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. A bus or something going by. It is so loud out here. All right. So I got to thinking, like, what can I talk about on the channel? How can I equate this to the channel? Well, whatever. I'm just gonna be open and honest about a lot of stuff, not as like an advice type of thing, but more like almost like a warning. But it also could serve as advice for younger people, because really from my early 20s is where I started screwing up, and like financially, money wise, and it has resulted in me. Really, I'm not really behind. I mean, I guess I am if you're talking about like money saved and investments and things like that. 401k. I basically don't even have a 401k. All of this is my fault. But starting in my early 20s, I think I had moved up near Raleigh. I was living alone. It was like basically my first place that I got alone. And this apartment was $300. This is like 2007, I think. $300 a month for an apartment. And it was bigger than this place, like way bigger. So that's crazy. But I was doing pretty good. I was still working in a restaurant then. So I didn't make a lot of money. I didn't really make enough to save, but all my bills were paid. I didn't really have a car payment or anything. The only thing I had was I had Virgin Mobile or something like that. Maybe it was Straight Talk. I don't know. This is well before I met my wife. Or ex-wife. So eventually my little brother came and visited a couple times, but then he eventually just moved in, which was cool, fine. I was thinking, like, it'd be cool to live together. And then we both moved back down to Wilmington, North Carolina to go to school. And the only reason I went to school was because my first enlistment in the Army, I was given $10,000 on student loan repayment. And plus, obviously if you serve or you're a veteran, you get the GI Bill. So we went to school. We basically had to do like the core classes first, but then I eventually went into the actual film program at Cape Fear Community College. I think he stopped going to school when I went there to the actual film program, which I didn't graduate. I started working on Sleepy Hollow, the TV show, while I was in school there. And I'd already been doing a lot of filmmaking stuff. I was well known around town, so I actually skipped a lot of classes. I just needed to take I think, biology and a math class and an English class, and I could have graduated. That's all I needed. I still could do that. But while I was going to school there, I was working full-time at Applebee's. But it wasn't enough money because it was Wilmington. Things were starting to get expensive about this time. This is like 2010-ish, okay? So I took out student loans for the 2 years that I was in school. Now, it wasn't a lot. I think it was like probably $10,000 to $15,000 overall. Now, remember, I had a student loan repayment program from my Army days. Crap. I need to turn my light on. Sitting here all dark and stupid. All right, so I had, obviously my student loan repayment, so up to $10,000 was going to get paid back. So, okay, cool. I did that. I got out of school, and then I contacted the military and said, hey, we went through the whole process of getting them to pay back the loans. So what they actually did, I don't know if this is true or not, or however it works. So I gave them all the information on the loan, and then I just forgot about it because they were going to pay it back. It was like $10,000, and that was it. Now, through all this, remember, my little brother's living with me, and he wasn't working. He did eventually get like a seasonal job at Target and then at a bowling alley, but it wasn't paying very much, and I didn't really make him pay any bills. So I was buying all the food, and, if we went to a concert, I paid for both. I was paying for everything. And I didn't really think of it like that. Like, okay, I got my little brother, taking care of him, and he's trying to get somewhere. But really, I was taking care of him too. I was supporting two people, grown adults. Okay, and looking back, that was a mistake. But I didn't look at it like that then. So while he was living with me, we eventually got a big apartment. One of my other friends, we moved into an apartment together. It was only like $600 for this big 3-bedroom apartment. And eventually the third roommate moved out. But by that time I had actually met who would be my wife in film school. And I got deployed to Afghanistan, like right when we met. And so I got deployed. Typically, if you get deployed and you're single living alone, you don't have to pay rent. They hold your apartment. You don't pay rent. Everything gets put on hold. But my brother was still living there, so I had to pay rent. So I paid rent, everything, all the bills. And I think right when I came back, so ultimately that means I didn't really save any money while I was deployed. I was still an E4. I wasn't making a lot of money, even though it was tax-free. I was supporting my brother back home. And then after I came back, the third roommate had moved out, and my ex-wife at the time, she needed a place to stay. So, okay, move into the third bedroom. We were dating. Cool, whatever. Again, my second mistake, not saying no, wanting to help somebody. And she moved in, and then eventually we all three of us, me, her, and my brother, we all got a house that we rented. And I don't think it was too much. I think it was like $800 or something like that. It wasn't too bad, but that was high back then. But then eventually my brother moved out. Or no, we didn't move out. The lease ended, and we were all going to go our separate ways. Finally, because I really wanted to live alone. I wanted to support myself. That was it. It finally dawned on me that I was supporting two other people because my ex-wife, she was not working. I was still paying rent. Now, she was getting a little bit of money from her dad to help out, but that was it. Like, I was now supporting two people with my stupid restaurant job at Applebee's. I don't know how I did it, but I did. And I was also working in film work. I started my own film company, so I was making money doing that stuff, but all of it was going to supporting other people, grown adults that I kept just paying for. And eventually we got out of that house. We all moved out. But then something fell through with what my ex-wife, girlfriend at the time, was doing, trying to get moved in somewhere. So I was like, fuck, okay, move in with me. Stupid, right? Stupid. Now, we've been together for a little while at this point. So it wasn't too far-fetched to have to move in together and just us, but that's what we did. And I was trying to help. Again, she never had a job. The entire time I was with her, she never had a job. She did little things that would make some money here and there, but not really anything consistent. So I was supporting her, and her dad was giving her money. So we could pay a little bit of bills, but I was mostly the one providing, which traditionally, you would say that's what a man should do, but we weren't married yet. So eventually we had our daughter, and there's a whole story of why we got married after we had our daughter. I wouldn't have even gotten married if it wasn't for this, and I don't want to talk about it right now, but it involves a hospital and some crazy shit. I can make a video about that later on, but I got married for legal reasons, not because we were a good couple or anything like that. Just got married for legal reasons. And we were together another 5 years, and the only reason I stayed was because of my kid. So after my kid was born, I got out of the restaurant business. I actually quit working in the film business, even though I still ran my small independent thing, but that didn't make a lot of money. It just made enough each month to maybe pay most of the rent. So really, I started working for Corning to make the glass, like Pyrex glass and fiber optic cable, and that's what I did. And that was my first okay job, even though it was only $16 an hour. It wasn't great. But then I left that and went to Verizon. And Verizon was the worst job I've ever had. Like customer service, tech support over the phone. It's a horribly abusive job. I hated it every second of it. I lasted about a year, and then I just quit on the spot one day because people were being just horrible on the phone. So it was giving me panic attacks. Again, did not pay a lot. Looking back, I actually calculated what I actually made at that job, and I think after taxes, it probably wasn't even $20,000. That's insane. And this was in 2016 and 2017. Yeah. So I wasn't making much money at all, but somehow I was making it work. I was the only one working. And eventually after I quit Verizon, I got into trucking, and I was still with my wife from 2018 to 2019. And then that's when we separated, because I've talked about this before on a different video about, where I was mentally and how I was just burnt out and didn't have any money. And I knew I needed to change something, and something was everything. I needed to get the hell away from the Southeast where I couldn't find any jobs. Even though I was driving a truck, I was always gone. I was gone 2-3 months at a time sometimes, and I was making decent money at the time. It was like $50K a year, but I never had any money. I was always broke because I was supporting someone else who wasn't bringing any other money in. And yeah, you look at that and you say, okay, that's what I want to do as a man. I want to be a provider, but that's hard to do these days. Both people need to work somehow. She couldn't. She was taking care of our kids, so I wasn't going to fault her for that. But eventually we split. And again, we didn't have a kid for 5 years before we had a kid, and she didn't have a job then either. So I'm not talking bad about it. I'm just saying facts. But yeah, eventually we split up. And in 2020, I decided I was going to move to hell away from North Carolina. And I looked at Pennsylvania. And when I got up there and moved, I immediately doubled my income. I bumped it up to probably $80,000 within a couple of months of moving there. So good move financially, right? $80,000 a month or a year. The job I had sucked. It was the most unorganized company I've ever worked for. But I had doubled my income almost, and that's when I met BPD Girl. So I have a video about that, and I'm talking borderline personality disorder, not bipolar. Bipolar is nothing compared to borderline personality disorder. Didn't know she had that until a year and a half after we started dating. But yeah, so I met BPD Girl, and like an idiot, actually fell in love. Ignored every red flag in the book that she had, and fell in love. We moved in together a year later, and I was supporting her and her kid. She was not working. Once again, me being an idiot provider, I want to be that, but I wasn't making enough money. Now, I was making, by the time we split, I was in a job where I was making almost six figures. If I was getting the VA disability check that I get now at the time, I would have been over six figures, but I was close to it. So I had a good job, and things were going pretty good, except I was still supporting someone else. I was having to pay for this expensive ass apartment that at the time was $1,500, and being somebody with BPD, you can't be happy. It's impossible. You're not allowed to be happy or relax or anything. So thankfully, I got out of that relationship mostly scratch free, but I got out of that, and then I still didn't really have any money. But I had a good job. I had finally had a good job. It took me forever to get one. I was in a job that was amazing. So now I'm single. I can save money. I can do what I want. This was 2022, the end of 2022. That's when I decided, okay, I started looking around. And I chose Salt Lake City because the company I was working for that I really liked had a terminal here in Salt Lake. Well, actually, it's in Ogden, a little up north. So I set up a transfer to the Ogden terminal and got rid of all the furniture that was in the apartment in Pennsylvania where I was living. And I had saved up some money really fast because I had this good job, right? I'd saved up like $10K within like a few months. And I knew I could move out here and just get settled in and look for an apartment once I got out here. And that's what I did. So I found this place, which is about the same price as what I was paying in Pennsylvania. Even though it's smaller, it's nicer. And my view is amazing. So that's what I did and moved out here. Now, the crazy thing is that really good job that I had, on the drive out here, they actually called and said, hey, we don't have a spot for you. We can't get corporate to make a lane for you unless you go completely over the road. I didn't want to do over the road. I wanted to do local. That's what I was doing. I was making almost six figures, home every night, sleeping in my bed. That's what I wanted to do. So I turned it down, and I lost that job. And it took me a while to find another job, like up until I moved here January 23, and it is now August of 25. And I've been at the job I currently have now for a few months, and it took me forever to find a good job that paid enough where I could be home every day. And that's what this one is. Thankfully, I finally found that, but it's not a six-figure job. It's a good bit less than that, but it pays enough for me to have my hobbies and pay my bills on time and not be behind financially. And obviously, I have the money to buy guitars. Actually, these aren't expensive guitars, but they are nice. And that's the thing, is in the last year or so, I started looking back. My biggest financial mistake was never looking out for myself, like ever. I was always supporting someone else that was giving nothing or giving very little. And I kept doing that. And I gave and gave and gave and gave and gave. And now I'm almost 40 years old. I turned 40 in February. I have nothing saved. You know, I have my 401k is almost non-existent. Like I finally, the last couple jobs I had a 401k, so I've been putting into it, but it's not going to be enough for me to retire on. Like I don't have money saved up to retire on. And that's the case for a lot of people. And hindsight's 20/20. Hindsight's perfect. You can always look back and say, I should have done this. I should have invested. I should have bought Bitcoin. I should have gotten into trades or truck driving when I was in my 20s instead of going into the film industry. I didn't need to go into the film industry. I didn't need to go to film school. I didn't need to do that. And here's the other thing I forgot is I still have student loan debt because the Army didn't pay it back. What I didn't know was that if you get the student loan repayment program and then you use GI Bill, which gave me just enough money to pay my rent, mind you, it wasn't much. If you use both, they cancel the student loan repayment out. And I didn't know that until my loans had gone into default. And I didn't have enough money to pay those things back. It was like $300-$400 a month. And I didn't have enough money for that. So now I do, but they've been like on a deferment thing because of COVID. It just came out of deferment, so I got to figure out what to do about that. And it's not a lot, but it's just like, God, man, the Army didn't warn me about that at all. Now, that one I will blame on the Army. But still, I just didn't know. Nobody told me that if you do GI Bill and student loan repayment, you don't get the student loan repayment. Like, that's crazy. But now I have that to deal with. And it does affect my credit, even though my credit isn't horrible. But I never really built credit up either. I never got a credit card. I hate the credit system. It's designed to keep you in debt. I don't even own a credit card right now. Should I? Probably. But the only thing I really need one for is if I rent a car. But I can rent a car on Turo, which is like Airbnb for cars. And they don't require a credit card. If you go to rent a car at Enterprise, you have to have a credit card with like a $500 limit at least, because they'll put a hold on it because they don't want anything to happen to the car. I'm like, what am I paying fucking insurance for then? But I don't have a credit card, so I haven't really built a lot of credit. And most things don't really count towards your credit, like paying rent. I always pay my rent on time. I make my car payments. But still, my credit has kind of hovered in an okay spot for a long time because I don't use a credit card. And I'm paying for a car now, so maybe that'll help. But I paid off a Jeep or my Cherokee last year, and my credit went down. It's like, good God, man. It's designed to just bullshit you over and over. So, I don't know. As if you're young and watching this, then you don't want to be 40 years old with nothing saved. Invest. You got to put money. Don't just save money. You have to invest money. Save money and invest money. Both. Do both. Because 401k can always drop. If something happens, if the economy goes bad or we go into a recession or something like that, the stock market can crash. So 401k is not a foolproof thing. I don't even know how IRAs work. I'm not financially gifted. Numbers confuse me, and that's always been a thing. I'm terrible with money, and I'm bad at money management, but I'm better at it now than I used to be. But also, when I was younger, they don't teach this stuff in schools, and I grew up in a pretty much poor home. So, I didn't know how to invest. I didn't know what an IRA was, and stocks and bonds, all that stuff. I didn't know. I had no clue until I was 30 years old. I didn't even know what that stuff was or how it worked, and I still don't have a grasp on it. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think I'll ever retire, and I think that's the case with a lot of millennials, is that we went to college, we got debt, and then we graduated in 08, or we're getting out in 08, which is a horrible job economy, and a lot of us didn't really start getting caught up until our mid-30s, which was me. In my mid-30s is when I started getting decent jobs. So, what do I do? I don't have a pension. Does it bother me a little? Yeah. But does it make me anxious or depressed? No, which is weird. I don't know. I can't tell people advice when I know I was bad at it myself. But what I do know is that if you're young, don't listen to other people. You don't have to go to college. I do fully believe that most of college is a scam. They're going to force you to take classes you're never going to need. Go to a tech college or a community college. Unless you're trying to be a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, do that. You have to go to a 4-year university and then get a master's after that for a lot of those jobs. But a lot of those jobs don't pay well. Doctors and lawyers pay well. But if you got to get a master's to be a teacher, they don't pay very well at all. So be smart about it. You might want a job that you'll love, but get a job that pays enough that isn't going to treat you like dirt. A lot of the trades are going to be like that. They're going to be hard work. Like a lineman, I think linemen make $200K, which that's a lot of money. You got to get licenses and certificates, but you don't have to go to college for that. Truck driving, you can make 6 figures if you're in the right area. They don't really have good 6-figure jobs unless you haul hazmat here. But you can make a lot of money as a truck driver. You can make a lot of money in trades. Don't look at these people on YouTube, these finance bros, and they try to give you all this advice, but their head's clouded because they've never been poor. They've probably always had money. And if you have money, it's easy to make money because you can invest that money. You can turn $10,000 into $1 million within a few years if you know what you're doing in the stock market. You really can. Now there's a bit of luck to it, but these finance bros, they're millionaires. They no longer have the brain of a less fortunate person. So I don't know. I wouldn't say follow them. You can probably get some ideas from them. But I watched a good many of those videos trying to figure out what the hell I could do. It doesn't work. Unless you have money coming in, it's hard to turn money into more money. If you are having to think about, well, I got to use this money to pay my light bill. I can't just invest it. And they'll be like, oh, just invest $5 a week. It's better than nothing. $5 a week ain't going to do shit. I've done that. It didn't do shit. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe there's some good ones. But, and another thing is, I obviously don't own a house. I have an apartment. My rent's cheaper than a house. But homes here, they're like $700,000. That's where they start. The only thing that's $400,000 and under, like $500,000 and under, are townhomes. Now, would I own a townhome? Yeah, sure. But I don't really, if I'm paying that much freaking money, I don't want to live with other people. So that's my issue with that. So I don't think I'll ever own a home. I don't know what I'll do about retirement. And I used to be insecure about it, but now I'm not. Because the more I looked into it, the more I realized this is the case with most people my age. Some are well off. Like a lot of my millennial friends, they've got money saved up. They bought houses. Their spouse works, and they just figured it out quicker than I did. I was stupid. I chose to support other people more than myself, and that's my biggest mistake. And don't do that. Look after yourself. If you're in your mid-20s, you might be thinking it's very masculine to provide for someone that isn't working. But if they're not giving you something in that relationship, if they're just there mooching, move on. Move on. Don't do what I did. I did it for 20 years, and now I'm broke. I make good money. I have hobbies that I love doing. I'm living a pretty good life, but I don't have money. And people think I might, but I don't have money. And a lot of people will try to insult me for that. Well, you're stupid. I was stupid. I looked after other people too much. Maybe it's a personality thing that I had. Maybe it was just me being kind. I don't know. But I gave too much, and I got too little. And I regret it now. So don't do that. Look after yourself. We're at 30 minutes. I got to stop talking. Y'all have a good one.